Hi everybody, this is Nate. Welcome to my channel, and I am delighted to welcome back Ness to be with us for a little bit of time and discuss what's coming up in the US and in the world. So it's a pleasure, it's a delight to have you back, Ness.
Hi, thank you, Nathe, for having me back again. It's been a while. I think it's been about 2 months since I was here last. I've deep in calendar making, which I will tell with y'all kind of in a moment. But yeah, thank you for having me back.
Well, why don't you tell us about your calendars?
I will, but let's talk a little bit about what we want to talk about today.
Oh, yes. So we prepared some sections. We're going to be talking about the economy, what's going on in the economy. We will be talking a little bit about Trump's speech, that kind of that impromptu speech, whatever we
Yes.
want to call it,
It
that's
will,
happening tonight.
yeah, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific tonight. Yes.
And then we're gonna be talking. I think the word on the street is really about his cabinet and the people all around him on the periphery. So we're going to be talking about that in terms of what's happening with them. There was Susie Weiss. Is that her name?
Yeah, Susie Wiles,
Yeah.
her Vanity Fair article, part one was released.
Oh, maybe we try to guess what's on into it, not guess what's on part two, and also a little bit of Europe as well as far as kind of the international side. Those are like fairly heavy duty topics. So maybe before we get started, maybe now that's the right
Yes.
time to talk about the calendars.
Folks, we're going to cover a lot today, so let me just do my quick little infomercial bit. So, folks, I don't have a YouTube channel, but what I do have is a newsletter. So, folks, if you pull out your phone and you use your phone, your camera option, you'll be able to sign up for my newsletter. I do a monthly newsletter. It's very curated, and it's the main way to communicate with me, connect with me, know about my new options, new products, etc. And then I also have just released my 2026 calendar. This was quite a labor of love, and it's meant to be a companion tool for you throughout the year so you have a sense of how the planetary movements are impacting your particular natal chart. So you'll be able to see in a particular month if that's great for money, for travel, for writing a book, for launching a business, etc., etc. So, yeah, that's all I have on my side.
And
What
maybe
about
a
you?
word, well, before we get there, a word on I got my calendar from you. And so I just wanted to kind of share in 10 seconds my experience of it. I felt like that was really interesting, not just from the point of view of understanding the transits or the aspects that are coming into my life next year, but also I want to commend you for the education aspect that's involved in the process. I know that that's an item that's big for you of not just telling people, but how to get. So to reuse your own words, I know you said that in one of my shows, and actually, I've experienced it myself where I'm not astrology savvy, and it forced me to learn actually. And so I was while it required a little bit of work, it really gave me a reward that was not just having the information, but being more aware of how we get the information. And I think if you're wanting to actually not just know what's going to happen, but learn how you get there, I
Mhm.
highly recommend you get the calendar. On my end, I've promoted those on my channel a number of times, but those products are still there. The paper magazine with actually my forecast, but using Tarot for next year by sign. And there's also a digital version that's cheaper, obviously. The Mystical Tarot of the Saints, and then the Whales Oracle with its book, and a lot of people love it. So I'm just wanted to kind of share that again. If you're really in need of a maybe a Christmas gift,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah. Or you want a new deck to start the new year.
yes. Um, so now that we kind of share
Yes.
that, let's get into kind of next year and starting with our topic of the economy, which is,
Mhm.
a big topic. And
Yeah.
also, I mean, obviously very focused on the US economy, but the economy is a global system. So there's whatever happens on one side happens on the other side.
Yeah.
And I mean, first thing off, with my intuition and what I've read in different readings is I'm very concerned for two things in
Mm,
or three, let's just say three. One is this has been going on and this is still going on is, inflation and people not just having enough money just to get by. And that's very concerning. Two, a lot of pressure on the job side, the job market, some people, good credentials needing 3, 6, 9, 12, 24 months to find a job. This is very concerning. And the fact that, the actual numbers are being hidden.
mhm,
Uh, and then I am concerned, and that actually ties more with the prediction with the stock market. And I
mm,
have a big concern about the stock market. In the stock market, the differential, we look at the stock market as one number, of course, but we know it's composed of the Nasdaq, et
mhm.
cetera, and the Dow. But AI is such a thing of its own right now.
Yeah.
And then so I feel like we're getting more of a disconnect with the traditional economy and the AI economy. And
Mhm.
I'm not an economist, but I can sense this pull.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is going to lead to something significant, and it's not going to be good.
Yeah, yeah. And talking about AI and talking about the economy, what you brought up, it's interesting because we are seeing a lot of they call them nerd oligarchs, the AI executives really chumming up to Trump. And in a weird way, if they didn't have such a strong relationship with Trump, perhaps we could see more clearly what the value is of the AI. But in a weird way, they kind of their uh, transactional beneficial relationship with Trump. I wonder if he's doing favors for them, type of thing, to kind of deregulate, but also other things that would allowed the AI bubble to burst sooner rather than later. And so in a weird, it's kind of stalling the inevitable. So I think had AI or these tech companies had not had such a, cozy relationship with Trump, I suspect that the bubble would have burst already. But I think there is some prolongedness with the AI bubble because of the relationship with Trump, so much so that it's not until Trump leaves that perhaps the AI bubble will actually burst. Does that make sense? Like they're kind of tied to him a little bit
Okay,
like that.
I see your point.
Yeah.
A couple of things there. The first one is that you might have heard that Trump had an executive order to remove AI regulations from the different. So that feeds completely into your point. Like it's making things extra easy for AI. I understand what you're saying, but I feel like it cannot stop a
The
process
inevitable. Yeah.
going, and I feel like it will happen
Yes.
before he leaves, and
Mm.
also it connects with jobs, right? The reason
Mhm.
that it connects with jobs, you just take one company, Amazon, has announced not 14,000 layoffs that we heard recently, 500,000,
Yeah. Yeah.
500,000 over a number of years purely with AI. So you have these companies, tech companies that are valuated on the stock market with expectation of letting people go. This is
Mhm.
how
Mhm.
cynical this situation is. And so you understand that this is a very, very it ties back to jobs, it ties back to money. And
Mhm.
so this and again, I feel that there's a lot of good as well that we can get from AI, but
Yeah.
there's also an immense change of civilization that goes
Mhm.
with it.
Mhm.
And the system that we live in is not very good to do soft landings.
Mhm.
And so
No.
those transformations are brutal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Our culture can be quite fragmented. Like one hand doesn't talk to the other in terms of change. For folks who are, AI can feel like such a lofty topic. A metaphor that can help folks to break it down a bit. It's like the invention of a calculator. Like let's say we live in a time where everyone does multiplication by hand and on paper. And now we have the invention of a calculator. And, some folks can say, well, that was my job to do this, and now I have this calculator. With certain tasks, they will go away. They will go away because we don't need to do them. But certain tasks, because of the consequences of getting it wrong, the emotions associated with that, there's going to possibly be a version generated by AI first, and then a human has to check it to say, yes, I approve it, or no, no, I
If if
don't. But
if I
yeah,
can just
sure.
interrupt you there
No,
because
of course, yeah.
it's I have a perfect example. Not being astrology savvy, I ask AI astrology questions on my chart. And
Good.
I know they're wrong because even the basic things, my rising sign, which I know is wrong more often than not. And then I
Ah,
tell AI, you're wrong.
yes.
I know I'm not a Gemini rising. I know I'm a Scorpio rising. And they
Yes,
say,
yes,
oh,
you are.
yes, you're right. You're right. And so it, I mean, this is very basic. And
Yeah.
so, and frankly, if you compare that to a software, free software that tells you,
Yes.
as you
Yes.
know, you're rising in 2 seconds, this is scary that it is not
Yes.
what you think.
Yeah, and it's so funny you mentioned this because I think Linda on her video yesterday mentioned asking ChatGPT to confirm if Rob Reiner had passed or not because this was early when it happened and people there was a lot of rumors and spread around. And people were reaching out to her for confirmation because she's a psychic. So she's like, can you even tap in? Is it really him or not? But yeah, I think for example, ChatGPT in particular pulls from a really large database. And so the propensity to be wrong, because you're asking about the weather and politics and astrology, it's much bigger. But if you have an AI like for your workplace and it's just for your emails or for your industry, the pool is smaller and it's more intelligent and more accurate. So yes, I think the consumer version right now, because they're trying to whet our appetite, is going to be really accurate with certain topic areas. And certain areas people just don't use it as often or it's new. In the case of Linda G, the Robert Reiner death was so recent, the model hadn't updated itself yet because it based itself on older data as opposed to something that happened in the past hour or something like that.
This is
So
not the place to check the news. This is the I
no, no.
no.
It's like Wikipedia or something. Like historical knowledge, tried and tested, yes. But yeah, new things, not as much.
Um, just kind of two side points
Mhm.
that I mentioned about AI since we're on that topic, even though we didn't really plan to talk about it that much.
I know
But
AI.
that I actually feel in the future AI will help us communicate with animals. Yes.
The
And
sensitivity and the
actually,
nuance, I could see that. Yeah.
and I also feel, and this, the second prediction is even more crazy. I feel like at some point AI will help us communicate with spirits on the other side.
I could see that. I could see that. You know, how do I say this? I did this project with Gen Z and for work, and I had to analyze Gen Z. I'm a millennial, and every new generation just is different. And so I did this project with Gen Z, kind of looking at their trends. And one thing that they're unique compared to my generation is their verbal ability. Their verbal ability is a lot more nuanced. They think about things in
Mm,
spectrums as opposed to binaries. And I think what you're saying with this communication piece, both with pets and guides, is this tool can help illuminate nuance. Like it's not green, it's chartreuse or hunter green. Like it gives more nuance. And I think having a tool that can feel like a companion and help you and be with you when you're in eighth grade or 12th grade, etc., can help build that nuance. And I wouldn't be surprised because a lot of the times with just your pet, if anyone has a pet at home, when you spend enough time with them and you understand those quirky body movements of, wagging the tail and then looking over there, you can start to decode a
Exactly.
bit.
You could upload a video of your dog and
Yeah.
ask, what is he telling me or she telling me?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think we're far from that.
No, I don't think so. And a lot of people are just so busy or they don't recognize those signs. I'm very empathetic and I have quite a verbal language with my dog. She actually knows 200 words, which I think on average dogs know about 50. But I'm very verbal with her. I just talk to her like she can understand me. It's so funny. A lot of folks, my friends look at me like, "You're talking to your dog." Like, yes, she gets it mostly. But sorry, we're going all the way down to this AIs and dogs. Going back to the economy, though, I do
Economy.
want to mention one other thing. So we had this holiday season just happen,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving. And I remember before Thanksgiving, folks were worried if they would have be able to purchase holiday food, like the turkeys, the price was going to go up, or the holiday ham, the price was going up. And I remember reading early reports that the businesses were going to um, expect less profits and they were going to kind of shoulder the economic burden a bit. And I did not realize it actually translated to Black Friday. So I don't know if you personally shopped on Black Friday this year, if any of the deals, hooked
Around
you.
Black Friday, not necessarily on Black Friday, but yeah,
Cyber Monday.
yeah,
But
I got some
yeah,
deals.
you're welcome to. But basically, the stores offered record amount of deals. They didn't want their product to sit on the shelf and
No.
go stale, and they offered record amount of deals. I saw price discounts I have not seen in years, and so the numbers came out that spending was actually up this Thanksgiving compared to last when adjusted for inflation for about 3%. So it's like by a hair. It's not completely knock it out of the park. But economically, people spent a lot. And let me share this for just a moment because it's actually Trump's approval ratings. And this was just released yesterday by Reuters. And I don't know if you're aware of this, Nath, but basically after Thanksgiving, because these companies cut into their profits, they basically softened the economic burden a bit. And Trump's poll numbers actually improved the past 2 weeks. But
Oh,
the jobs report came out this week and it quickly went down. And he has, the lowest, I think, approval rating um, at his point ever, as you can see this,
the
for the
highest
economy.
disapprove, the highest
Yeah.
disapprove, and the
The
lowest
highest
approve.
disapproval basically because of the economy. And I think the job unemployment rate, and I apologize, folks, if I have this wrong, but is the highest in the past 4 years. We have the highest job unemployment rate, which I think the last time was the pandemic, was when the unemployment rate was this high. So we have Trump has a speech later today, and it's very likely he's going to address the economy because the jobs report came out and this record rating, and he's so sensitive to ratings, like numbers.
That's exactly what's going on here. It's this s- state of the union that's not a state of the union, but trying to do something like this will be very focused on accomplishments related to the economy. Uh,
Mhm.
and and my prediction, and I just heard that, but that's not hard to imagine. It's actually rather than his accomplishment, it will be a lot of blaming
Oh, you
on the
think so?
Biden
Oh,
administration. I feel, yes, that there will
okay.
be
Can you pull
uh,
cards on it? What do you think
yes,
his speech will be
yes.
about later?
Um,
I, it's
the
it's in 48 hours, the Epstein files is coming out. So it just seems kind of strange, the timing. We had the attacks on the boats. I apologize. I think it's Venezuela and another country, or
yes.
maybe the Pacific was
Well,
also
the lots in the news, the Brown University
the Brown
shooting,
University. Yeah, that's snafu. Also, his comments about Rob Reiner was just it hurt me. It really, really hurt me when I heard
yes.
him talk about him because he's, Robert Reiner has contributed a lot for the American culture. The Princess Bride, A Few Good Men, and his production company was responsible for a lot of films. I think his production company is Castle Rock. I think he produced a lot of Stephen King films too. And so it's just sad to see someone who's supposed to be the grown-up in the room just behave so.
But not completely surprising. I'm gonna pull cards on the speech.
Yes.
One thing that I would say too is that that goes into purchasing power, jobs in the stock market, is that out of 100 points increase related to the tariffs, only 1/3 were passed on to the consumer. And so
Oh,
the consumers have not really experienced as much the
oh, I heard
tariff
that.
because companies have
Absorbed it.
absorbed, but
Yeah.
this is a delayed problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the
But
speech.
even that, do you see that? The delayed problem, the companies absorb it. That's not a sustainable model. Because
No.
in our previous sessions, you and I have said everyone's behaving like Trump is not going to be there the whole 4 years. They all are behaving like he's just going to be there for a year or so. And so even what you said there, that businesses are absorbing, it's that same hypothesis
Mhm.
that they're just doing it for a little bit and then just to kind of placate him, but eventually it's going to go back to the way things were.
Or they would have to push more price increase on consumers, which then leads to more serious problem to the economy. The
Yeah.
point where we are right now with those tariffs are not sustainable, but businesses have not passed them on because they're afraid of not getting business whatsoever.
Yeah.
So
So
let's look at
his speech.
the speech
You
tonight.
know, I feel he's going to say a bunch of false stats about job creation. Like he just did the speech this last week and he said Peru 20,000 people die in a year from viper bites or something like that. So he's really fast and loose with numbers. I wouldn't be surprised if he's going to be fast and loose with numbers about the economy. I don't think he's going to talk about foreign policy. I do feel it's just going to be about the economy and maybe some new initiatives to give everyone money, or I feel like it's going to be some sort of distraction. And I do believe he's doing this in anticipatoriness for Friday's Epstein files. Like post No King's protest, Trump, demolished the East Wing, right? And so this is kind of like the reverse of it. He's already knows something's going to happen Friday, and he's kind of like love bombing us right now. He's giving this big thing, so we get when that thing happens on Friday, we're confused in how we make that evaluation. Yeah, go ahead and share the cards.
So the first card is the King of Wands. That's him trying to portray himself in a position of power. The wands are about action, the connection with fire, right? This is a fire energy. So maybe intuitively also I'm picking up he wants to show that he's very active.
Mm.
I'm hearing also maybe also showing that is in good enough health to
Yeah,
do something like this. I feel
yeah,
like there's also proving that he's alive and well.
yeah.
I think there's a little bit
So,
of that
because when you last week, he had three speeches and he fell asleep in
sleep
all three of
or
them.
free.
Because yeah, which I actually asked ChatGPT when I gave some symptoms. They basically said the blood pooled to the bottom of his I guess stomach, and that went down from his head for so long. That's why he likely felt sleep. It's probably related to a heart-related
Yeah.
condition. Yeah, but go ahead.
The Four of Pentacles, it's the economy. I think we knew that. This is about holding to it's both about the economy, but also to what he believes about the economy. The Knight of Pentacles, that's an interesting card. It's about money coming, but it's the slowest
Yeah,
horse in the deck. So you know that he's gonna announce something coming to people, but it's either not coming or just too slow or not
you,
significant.
I have a thought. Can I share what I think your two cards are? I think sometimes he says, folks, like, wait, it's just gonna change. Wait till we get to, right around the corner.
Oh,
Everything's gonna change soon. Just hold on. Just hold on. And I feel your Four of Pentacles in particular, it's that hold on.
well,
And the
yes.
Knight of Pentacles is like, wait, everything will just slowly change. I think he'll have a message of, hold on, folks. It's going to get better. It's just a little, the tariffs haven't went full effect yet, or it takes a while. Something like that, based on the cards you pulled.
And I feel like he's also, I was saying that before, Seven of Swords, the blaming on the previous administration, but it's also him lying.
Mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
that I think it's pretty much, but it is really about the economy. It is really about false numbers. It
Yeah,
is, there's an aspect of hold on and promises that are not like the stimulus check or whatever,
yeah,
that are not true or don't apply or that sort of thing. So when you think about this, it's nothing.
yeah. No, it's
It
a
is a speech with nothing.
and there's a term in toxic abusive relationships called future faking. Future faking is where you get a person to be attached to you by faking something will happen in the future. Like, don't worry, I'm
Yeah.
about to marry you or I'm about to propose. Just hold on. And so I'm curious if he's going to that Seven of Swords future fake, like, oh, in March I'll do a stimulus check or something to people with sunk costs will continue to hold on. And also the Knight of Wands, sorry, the King of Wands you had shared earlier, it makes me think of maybe he'll talk about the war stuff. Like maybe he'll give some rationale that we are at war with Venezuela because of the fentanyl crisis. Maybe there's something there he might
Could be.
offer to substantiate his position.
I pulled one more card because we never have enough. The
Yeah.
Four of Swords. It's interesting, the Four of Swords. I'm going to tell you my interpretation of the Four of Swords. First is that there's nothing new under the sun. We just said that. But the second, it's usually about someone who is sleeping, who are
Mm,
resting,
yeah.
sleeping, low energy. So I also kind of wonder, like, while the goal is to show him high energy, will there be also moments of him where his true state might be more visible? I'm just
Yeah.
putting it out there.
Yeah. Like, so you're saying, like, almost underneath the surface of the speech in the background is this Four of Wands, sorry, Four of Swords energy, where as much as he's being bravado and, pumping his chest, it's very clear he is slipping. He's being called home
Yes,
a bit.
yes. And maybe like it could be also at first the energy is very strong and then he can't sustain it. And it just, you actually, the audience will feel an energy drop.
Oh, it's like when Biden and Trump did that debate back
Uh,
in 2024, like I think in June or something, and Biden had a couple gaffes, and then everyone afterwards were like, "Oh my gosh, we have to find someone else." I wonder if maybe he will have that moment. When I saw him last week when he was falling asleep and rambling, and even this week with the 20,000 viper bites, and he couldn't even he was scrambling for the word animals and he couldn't say it. He ended up just saying like creatures or something like that. I think a data scientist can just take every speech that Trump has given the past 2 months and notice his vocabulary irregularities and his misplaced words and basically plot a chart of his decline and basically predict when he will be beyond the threshold of socially acceptable. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if someone actually already did this. So, um,
yeah.
yeah, I'm because he feels like he's slipping. He feels even the Robert Reiner thing. I feel he doesn't even have the presence of knowledge to realize the presence of mind to know that that comment could be. He's just more impulsive. Does that make sense? Like playing
Well, it's
fast and
always
loose.
been very impulsive, but it feels like it's new lows. It's really new
Yeah.
low. Um, Also, that kind of might be a segue into a second topic, is that it feels that is also more isolated,
Yes.
and the people around him are not really holding his hand anymore.
No.
Obviously not Susie Viles.
I know the interview, the Vanity Fair. I listened to Joanna Coles from the Daily Beast, and she does this podcast with Michael Wolff, and they, unpack Trump's mental health and his connection with Epstein files in their podcast series. And they had a hypothesis yesterday that Susan Wiles is not media savvy. And they think that perhaps she was confused about the off the record, on the record moment and so they think they say the interview is very sounds very much like someone who said something off the record and did not realize like you have to be very clear with the journalist off the record, on the
Sure.
record. And often when you're being interviewed, there is an aspect of wanting to be liked by the interviewer, like this trying to create a bond. So she might offer something or so yeah, that was their hypothesis that basically she didn't realize she was on the record, off the record in terms of what she disclosed.
So I would say to that, it's a possibility. That feels though that a beginner's mistake. I have a bit of a different theory.
Hmm.
It's a complete opposite theory, in the sense that I feel like she had enough. She can't control him. The situation is dire.
Mm.
He is such a mess, and it's almost like she kind of acting surprised, but in reality, I don't think she
Mm.
wanted to stay very long. And she's acting, oh my goodness, I thought that was off the record. So I don't know.
Oh,
That was my
that's
intuition.
totally plausible.
But
Yeah.
those are at the opposite, and either of them could be true. Yes.
I'm curious if you want to pull cards on Wiles. Like what's her outcome? Does she stay? Does she pull the wool over Trump's eyes the way you're describing and stay, or does she leave? So if you want to pull cards on that. But I also love to take a step back and just talk about the people peripheral to Trump because they are all behaving very differently right now. Both based on incompetence, like Kash Patel, like he's reaching new depths of his own incompetence when we think about Brown's handling of the shooter. Also, the report that happened last week, where I guess sources in the FBI said the FBI is run by fear and intimidation. He's in over his head. There was an instance where he didn't want to leave a plane until he was given a proper jacket because the FBI labeled jacket he was given was a woman's jacket and he wanted something that made him look macho. And so, yeah, people around Trump, Rubio not being present in Russia for the Putin debates, Hegseth and his efforts with everyone around him is behaving a little bit. Marjorie Taylor Greene. So you can make a lot of inference with the folks around it. But before we do that, what do your cards say about Susan Wiles? Like,
Yeah. So I think they're pretty clear. The Six of Sword, it's her leaving. The Five
really?
of Cups, I feel also leaving. And the
Yeah,
interesting
agreed.
part is the Three of Cups. Actually, she, I have to cover a little
Yeah.
bit. She doesn't, she actually, she's
She's
happy
happy. Yeah, she's
leaving.
happy. Yeah.
I think that's what
That
I
goes to
felt.
your
So it
theory.
might, and maybe my intuition influenced the cards, but I feel like she's done.
Yeah.
And she's done. I feel she cannot control him. I feel that it or let's maybe just say she might know that it's gonna get significantly worse,
Yeah.
and she doesn't want to be here for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love to share a quote. This is something that Heather Cox Richardson shared in one of her books. I think this is her 2021 book. I have it down here. It's the Democracy Awakens. This is a great book. It's really relevant to the times we're in about how the world is having a decline of democracy and a rise of authoritarianism in different places. But in this quote, she talks about how often authoritarian leaders will appoint unqualified people to positions of power, expecting that those people of these unqualified people will be fiercely loyal to the authoritarian leader. And they also know that without that leader who elevated them, they will not be able to be in that position of power and maybe even in prison. So they have to cleave to him, the authoritarian leader, to the end. And basically, she's describing what we're seeing here with, I mean, Susan Wiles seems to have not that type of relationship, but we see that with like Kash Patel. He was, I mean, a podcaster. He had no military or law enforcement background. We're seeing him having a snafu with Charlie Kirk's shooter. I think he had fired the head of that region, a woman, um, like a month before because of he didn't think that she was aligned with him, and that was caused issues with the ground response to Charlie Kirk with the FBI at that moment, and they weren't able to catch him. The shooter in theory turned themselves in, but this Brown
Yeah.
shooting, I think at one point, I don't know if it was Trump or Kash Patel, but he said that the Brown University was supposed to resolve this, not the FBI. Like, and universities do have police, but not like that.
No, not at that level. Oh, that's funny. Not funny, but funny. I would agree. I mean, Exet is in a really tough spot. I think he has three strike already on him. The three strikes are um the parade,
Mhm.
the signal
Right.
communication leak, and then this particular issue with the strike. So it's just three big
But
things.
Trump just did an executive order declaring that fentanyl was like a war, or there's a war on fentanyl to legitimize what Hegseth is doing by attacking the
Yes.
boats. Do you see that means as a favor of Trump backing Hegseth or more of a neutral stance to cover his bum?
I think it's much bigger than Exet. I think this is playing into his narrative because I feel like with the MAGA base, I think it talks to them. And so the
Mhm.
economy doesn't really talk to them anymore because it's going to try today to improve that, but it's not really talking with them. The drugs aspect talks to them. So he's using that as a rhetoric that feeds into their thinking. Frankly, even the um, the immigration aspect, or ICE and deportations, it's starting not to click as much with the base. It's There's this thing about it's kind of a paradox where he claims so much. This is it hit me a couple days ago.
Mhm.
Trump has claimed so much that he has completely solved the problem of illegal immigration, and that was his main topic. So it has actually resolved the issue that was the reason he gave people to vote for him. So it
Yeah.
resolved. So it's actually not serving him to keep saying it because people actually voted him for that. And now that it's supposedly resolved, people are going to say, well, okay, it's done. We can move to
Now
something
what?
then.
Yeah.
So it's just not playing in his favor either.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very even his wins, he's not really packaging them as wins. Like he's kind of confused, which goes to his mental decline. Yeah, I think there's chatter about Gnome possibly being
Yes.
on the chopping block, which is interesting because I think Patel, Hegseth, I mean, who's going to replace these folks? Like, this is just not even year one, and all these folks are here. We're also seeing Vance and Usha Vance, and there are these women. I had it women. The two women on the podcast, I had it. I think they call it. There's like an acronym for it, but they are noticing that Trump is actually even Joanna Coles is noticing that Vance is trying to court the alt-right a bit, the younger, more extreme MAGA folks, like men that are very, very homophobic, but also anti-Semitic, and trying to inflame that as his backing, and possibly it's creating tension with him going after these MAGA-based folks when he's married to a woman of color and he has biracial children, and we're seeing reports of Vance or Usha not wear her wedding ring in public. I have a hunch. So I have a feeling that Usha is negotiating her contract right now. And, she's a lawyer. And it really gives me the vibes of, do you remember Katie Holmes and Tom Cruise?
Yes.
They were married for a while. She had Surrey. And Katie Holmes, the actress, her father's actually a lawyer. And so she did all of this covert, like had recordings, etc., had dirt, and then she was able to exit her marriage with Tom Cruise and keep Surrey away from him. I think there's a hypothesis there that, that Scientology was about to
Yes.
escalate how they were going to relate to Surrey, and she wanted to protect Surrey, but she was able to walk out of that clean. So I have a feeling Usha is doing that right now. She's negotiating. She's doing things like wearing her ring without, not wearing her ring in public to negotiate. I don't think she's going to leave him, but I think she's negotiating. Like if I'm going to be with you for another year, I get 25 million when I leave or something like that.
And they were seen, there was like an article where they were seen arguing at a
Yes.
restaurant, and the photo was really, the optics
Yeah,
of the photo
there's
was really bad.
so there was
Yes.
a TikTok. I'm so into pop culture. There was a woman when this happened. There was a woman who was a server at that restaurant, and she basically narrated what she saw, what was happening, that they were heated in an argument, and there was something where Usha said, like, this could be our life, like, things could be simple, and we don't have to make things as complicated. And the subtext was that Vance is trying to go after something and making things worse. And then, yeah, now we see photos of that same restaurant conversation. So,
Okay, so let's ask a card, just one card. What is Usha Vance doing right now? What is her take on all this?
okay. What do you have? I'm so.
Six of Pentacles. I
Oh,
mean, you
that's it.
have
That's the
it
contract.
all.
Oh my
And you
gosh, that's
have
the contract.
you have the scale of justice, which could be the
Yeah.
contract, and the money changing hands.
Oh my God. I knew it. I knew it. She's a lawyer. She went to Yale, I believe, as well. Like she's a smart little cookie. So, I would
Yeah,
imagine she's negotiating her contract right because she has the most leverage right now, especially if they have a sense of Trump declining and things are moving. Can we also talk about MTG? So real quick,
yeah,
before we move on to the other topics, MTG is such a irregularity. We're all saying like, okay, you were running this way, now you're running this way. Like it feels like such a cognitive dissonance around that. But MTG, I feel she has a backer. I feel like she has a very powerful backer, and I think she is realizing where things are going to be in about a year from now. Like I think she has some sort of inside information, or and so her leaving the her position in the house,
yeah.
I feel I don't I mean I know she has a great relationship with her constituents, but I could see that being seen as a sign of betrayal. Like you're leaving before you're supposed to go in there and just, finish out your
Fight for
term.
us. Yeah.
And it could be seen as opportunistic that you're going to run for Senate right after, like as opposed to just showing up for the people, or maybe that's just my projection. But I feel she kind of knows where we might be in a year from now, and she's kind of positioning herself so that when things come out in this way or this way, she will take advantage of it. One other context. So Trump is a narcissist. And narcissists want to hog the attention. They want the attention on them. They don't want things to be. But one thing when you work with a narcissist is you can be very stealth with what you're doing and not make it overt. For example, when this presidency happened, I was like, well, where are all the Democrats? Why isn't, Obama doing something? But actually, or Pelosi, where's Pelosi? But it actually makes sense with a narcissist. You don't want to reveal what you're doing because they will react to it because they like that optics,
Mhm.
public stage type of thing. And so MTG is so interesting because she's the only one that publicly pushes back against Trump, where I feel like everyone else are, working an operator behind stage. But what are your hits about this about face that she's doing, or
Well,
how things will play out?
when I read about her, I felt that she would not quit politics. She resigned from her seat, but she will still be in politics. I feel like she would try to get a movement that would be an offshoot of MAGA, that she would run. Now, when you were kind of talking about her, like in the last few minutes, I was getting a sense, I don't know, this came a little bit like that, that I got a hit that she knows Trump's true state of his health,
Hmm.
and so she has insider information on like the complete reality of his health situation, and it gives her a timing element.
I feel that too. I feel like she knows something timeline wise.
Yes.
Some even Cash Patel's number two, Dan Borgino, he announced today he's going to be leaving. So it's some folks are, and
Wow.
I think there's even someone posted Eric Swally, I think Swalla, he posted about a week ago, like 20 Republicans that might potentially leave, or like watch out for these folks announcing their resignation soon.
That would confirm the Susie Viles theory,
Motivation. Yeah,
that
yeah.
she's leaving because she knows, or she knows the time, or she, I've, yeah, that could be an element there as well. Um, I think we wanted to kind of pivot a little bit outside the US.
Yeah, to Europe, and in particular, uh, I'm noticing some things with how Europe is being impacted by Trump. So, I live in a very progressive state, California, and so we experience certain things that Trump does more so and less so than some other states. And in America, we can be very isolationist. Like we don't often hear news about Europe or South America or even Africa that often. And I'm now coming to the conclusion when I, peek my head and look at the BBC or Guardian News, or the London Times, that Europe is being impacted by Trump a lot, more so than any other region. In a weird way, we're like siblings. So like if California and Florida are siblings, sorry, US and Europe are cousins. Like we're still being impacted. And I think in one way it's really being impacted is how Russia is really scaring the rest of Europe of possibly another global war. Um, I have a friend who lives in Switzerland, and they are now cracking down on podcasters and um, other TikTok influencers that seem to be perpetuating pro-Russia propaganda. And, that's an interesting testament of the times we're in, of that they're afraid of that there is some sort of grooming of the people to start to normalize Russia's interference. And that's Switzerland, like they're neutral.
There was to kind of to this point, and you're right that a lot of information doesn't really travel back to the US. But just to give you um, an example that actually happened yesterday.
Mm,
So right now, there are some protests in France from the farmers. Long story short, but there's a disease that's not mad cow disease, but there's a disease for cows, and it's very terrible because a lot of animals die, and you have to do vaccination, and it's very, very, it's so there's a lot of protests from the farmers, and there was on Facebook a video that was actually created by Russia that um, were showing a female reporter with fires behind her and a building, and it looked like she was in Paris, and she said like this is like made up, but she said, "Oh, I wanted to report a coup. France is under now, the French president is no longer president. There's the military has taken over. I mean, like all these like lies, and
mm,
to the point of the French president received a text message from another president in Africa said, "Are you still in power?" And I said, "Why?" I said, "I just see that on Facebook." The French President Macron went to Facebook, asked to remove it. Facebook responded that it was not against their rules. And so
yeah.
so it's a huge issue, but that gives you, there's a lot, one of the biggest tool that Russia has used is disinformation, misinformation.
Mhm.
They used, it's small things, but they used right before the Olympics in Paris that they had a number of bots saying that there were bed bugs everywhere in the hotels. And they
Oh,
created like a paranoia because
yeah,
this people felt like there was bugs everywhere, bed bugs everywhere. And it was not true. It was,
yeah,
and so they are very powerful. And it's the same way that Russia has been involved in the election in the US. And so that's just like one example of cyber attacks on
yeah,
hospitals. It's disinformation. It's funding extreme right movements
yeah.
all across Europe. And Trump is part of that.
Yeah. No, it's very this yeah, I think Russia has the economy of Italy, but it's so influential in terms of its ability to create disorder and chaos in so many parts of the world. I think even with Kamala's in Trump's election that happened in 2024, there were reports of a lot of these pro MAGA accounts were actually just based in Russia. A lot of the
Mhm.
bomb threats that happened to that,
Yeah,
there was the city that Trump said that they were eating the dogs and the cats. That city had bomb threats to the school, and they did research and they found out it
yes,
was all in Russia. Even election day bomb threats were determined to be
yes.
all
By the
from
FBI, yes.
yeah, by Russia. And so I'm so curious. I feel a little bit hopeful too that Europe is in the bucket in the bucket as we are, and their consequences are more extreme that such that they might help with the shifting of Trump or that it's not just us to the Americans, us like Pelosi, Obama, like us to fix Trump, but they could perhaps be helpful there. What do you see in terms of
Mhm.
Europe and this war with Russia or how things will turn out or how they're helping Trump?
I feel like the vast majority of countries in Europe are realizing, first of all, they realize that Trump is Trump, but Americans are not Trump. I mean, that there's like an obvious
They can
understanding
separate the
here
two. Yeah,
that it's
that's great.
absolutely different.
That's
That
great for
I
folks who are
need to
traveling.
say that first because it's super obvious.
Yeah.
Um, but it's also true that an America with Trump will not be an ally to Europe.
Mhm.
And I really believe that, NATO, Article 5, is one of the countries is attacked within NATO. All other countries come to their rescue.
Yeah.
And there's a belief today that if one European countries around NATO were attacked, Trump would not come to the rescue.
Yeah. No, I
I
think it's true.
and it's
I think
true.
it, yeah.
Yes.
Even
And so,
even Robert Reiner, who passed, would openly talk about how he thought Trump was controlled by Russia. Like
you know,
it's just like
and so this has led to all countries in Europe raising their military spending. And that has everything is connected. So when you have to spend more money in the military, then that money you don't have for hospitals, schools, etc., etc. It's just as simple as that. And so it's a new world, but it is also a scary world, while at the same time, a number of countries in Europe are turning more and more and more to parties or leaders that admire Trump.
yeah, the I think someone just had an election in Europe and they chose a more right candidate. I'm trying to think of which country. Well, I know Chile just had an
Really,
election and
but
they
yes,
chose a more right
yes.
candidate, but there was
But
another
it
one.
is all across Europe, you have
Yeah.
this phenomenon of right wing and people that are friends, quote unquote,
Yeah.
friends with Trump. And so it is a dire situation as
It
well. Um,
it matches her book about the rise of authoritarianism across the world. How do you feel? Do you feel Putin is going to go away in the next year or so? I actually do feel both Israel and Putin have this like wrap up energy type. We've talked about this before that they kind of need
yeah,
to get things done. And I'm shocked that Trump sent um, his Kushner and the Steve I can't, Wyckoff, as opposed to Marco Rubio to have those debates. And I don't know if you saw those images, like Putin was
Yeah,
smiling like a Chester cat, like
but
grinning ear to ear, and it
the
was just
reason it was who was it? Not Stephen Miller, but I forgot. Kushner.
Stephen, yeah, Stephen Wyckoff,
Yeah.
yeah,
Kushner was there because it is always there whenever there's a discussion about business. So it's never about that. That just gives it away. It's not
yeah,
about peace, it's about money. It's the same thing where Kushner is involved in Gaza and the rebuilding of Gaza and etc. etc. So we see it through the angle of peace, but it is to the angle of minerals, territories, money, contracts,
yeah.
military spending. It's the dirty side of the war.
Yeah, yeah. The reason why we're in Venezuela, like it's clear it's not some humanitarian cause, it's just about oil, which was revealed this week. Could you
And
pull
minerals
cards?
and
Okay.
minerals
And
and minerals.
minerals, yeah. Oh yeah, there's also minerals with, but could you pull cards on Putin's 2026? I'm curious. Because, I've a lot of psychics, timing is so hard, but they all feel Putin declining. Like he's kind of, and now I very much feel Trump declining. He feels like, sand in your hand. It's just like it's slipping and slipping away. But I don't think, in a weird way, Europe can kind of wait out Putin. Putin has to move fast.
Wow. Those cards are not good cards. Five of Wands, there's a struggle, and I feel like this is a struggle within Russia
Yeah,
as
it's
well as
cabinet.
yes. The moon, something is happening in the background that is not very clear for him.
Hmm.
And the Ace of Sword, like the Ace of Sword, like a decision,
Yeah.
that's
Contract.
not doesn't feel like a happy beginning. That feels like something is being cut, literally.
Yeah.
What is going on with his health? The Chariot could be that he's leaving.
Hmm.
Um,
It's trying to move forward.
and Nine of Pentacles, money again coming through. There may be some sort of a deal
Yeah,
made
feels like a
that he's
deal.
leaving. A deal is made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially his economy is not doing very well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that is all that we wanted to cover. Today we covered a lot. Before we end, let me just share one thing with folks. I just want to give them a bit of a blur with the calendars because I will open you calendar orders this Friday. So calendar orders are closed. But I wanted some folks to be able to see what you receive. So everyone receives a 12-page kit where it has one for each month. So you have a sense of what your astrological forecast is for that month, especially when you know your natal placements. You have a sense of, oh, well, there's, Mercury's on my Mars. What does that mean in terms of that particular month? And that's the what the calendar is able to give you. It's able to give you a forecast for that particular month. And then also with that, everyone receives a 20-page companion document. And let me show that to folks because that's that whole education piece you were speaking
Yeah.
to. Um, and let me grab it. Here we go. So this is the companion document, and it basically supports you if you're a beginner, how to use the calendar, if you're more intermediate, how to use the calendar. And when you're intermediate, it goes straight to kind of key topic areas that a lot of people ask about during personal readings of how to look at the calendar for health or finances. And I'll just jump to one of them so folks can see what it looks like. But for health and wellness, it tells you to notice which houses to look at and what planets, and it gives you a great analysis. So I think once you sit down and look at it, you can start to unpack the calendar for you in key areas. And I also have a class too that will help folks make the most out of their calendar. But I'm so excited. This has been a labor of love, and now it's
Well
out.
done.
Just, yeah, I mean, I made a tool that I wish I had myself, but I feel like folks are really going to find how astrology can be more actionable for themselves and start to plan things. Especially, I think when you start to use it after 2 months, you're going to go, wow, oh, wow, it's being able to really give me a forecast
Work
for
with
things.
it, and you have a
Yeah.
whole year to practice it. So
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
that's pretty cool. Well, Ness, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you again in January,
Yes, in January.
which is in a really couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll talk about January's astrology as well as some key themes in 2026. There's some cool things happening in April, in August, and Mercury and the Sun are doing a really cool thing all of 2026. So we'll kind of unpack that in terms of how to use that for yourself. Yeah.
Very exciting. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for watching us, and we appreciate you. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. If you celebrate something else, happy holidays, and in definitely a happy new year. I know I'll speak with most of you before the end of the year, but just it's happy new
Just great coverage across. Bye,
year.
everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye.